Hey there, this is Adrienne Lopez, the Integrative Awareness Coach, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 14 of the Mind, Heart, Space podcast. Today I'm recording live outside, so if you hear the wind blowing or the sound of traffic, that's what it is. Today I wanted to talk to you about the topic of clearing the path. What is it? What does it look like? What does that mean? And for me, this path that I'm discussing today is the journey to the highest expression of who you are. And this requires a couple of things, namely the ability to anchor that vibration into your physical body, activating that inner creative spark, and intentionally working with your inner team. And today I'm going to talk to you about how this can be demonstrated and integrated into your life. Now, we have many different spectrums of consciousness, although the majority of us have been conditioned to see just the conscious mind, which is conscious of the material world, just what we see and what we hear, and the sensations around us. But actuality, we have a quite dynamic, complex consciousness, including, in addition to our waking consciousness, we also have our subconscious mind and our superconscious mind, the part of us that's connected to the infinite spirit of all that there is. And so this path clearing requires not only identifying the patterns of consciousness, but uncovering the architecture and foundation of our consciousness so that we can become masters of it and begin to wield it instead of being at effect of it. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean. Now, many of us have read about the New World explorers, those that sailed across the sea, Christopher Columbus in our history textbooks, who sailed to the Americas, where they discovered this uncharted, utilized land and riches. Well, I'm talking about a different type of journey with you today. This is to a new world, but instead of going outward, this journey requires us to go inward on a voyage across the territories of the quantum seas of the energy of life itself. Now, there have been people on this planet, teachers and ascended masters, that have made this journey for eons. So it's not so uncharted, although the ascended masters such as Buddha and Jesus, just to name a few, the yogis, the rishis, the wisdom schools, left us the maps. But we must have the eyes to see and the hearts to feel in order to decipher these maps. Now, quantum physics, as you may know, has discovered that everything is energy. The universe is energy. The language of the universe is energy. And this is the same language of the soul and the heart. We have to learn to be able to read energy and follow energy in order to make this journey. So, when the mind is aligned with the heart, which is the largest electromagnetic field in our body, there is a coherence between the mind and the heart. Soul signature, your unique soul signature, can emerge and take flight, and there is a balance returned, a balance of a vision. So what does this all mean? And how does this happen? Well, if you haven't noticed, there's a cracking right now, a cracking of the matrix. The institutions, the societal systems, and the practices that we've been accustomed to for the entirety of our lives are breaking down. And there's a precept, a well-known precept in consciousness studies says that everything first happens in consciousness, and then the results are reflected out into the world. So based on this precept, the systems that we see breaking down have already happened in our consciousness, because our collective consciousness can no longer hold these energy agreements, these contracts, or these arrangements. And this matrix is a sort of, I like to think of it as a fabrication or an ornamental layering of veils known as the ego consciousness that keeps us in separation from our source. And this source is the currency of the universe, of creation, of consciousness itself. It is the source of all health, wealth, vitality, and being, the presence of life. And so these fabrications in the form of what we experience as agreements or programs have been created or built, and they have been internalized, and then our conscious mind or subconscious mind fractals these beliefs out into the world through our minds, through the light of our own consciousness awareness, as these imprints that we've gathered throughout our lives, through our upbringing, our social conditioning, in a sort of shared trance, or the way we perceive reality. Now, this trance is what yogis have called the Maya or samsara, and this world of illusion, because it is solely based on the ego mind's identification, is imbalanced, because the ego cannot see the other layers of consciousness that exist simultaneously, and so therefore it lives in a very poor world. And so this ego or separate self, this identity, is actually based on lack or loss and fear. And it is constantly distracted, because when we are under the theme of this leadership of this ego that is constantly in duality, it is either grasping at things it doesn't want to lose, or it's in aversion, it's pushing away things. And so the ego is constantly thrown between these two poles of duality, and it is not aware of the other aspects of consciousness. Now, it is said that the subconscious mind is actually 90% of the reality that we're living in. This is all the information, the programs, the agreements, the beliefs at a vibrational level that is stored in our consciousness. And it is the vibrational blueprint for the conscious mind or the ego mind that is witnessing what is unfolding through its own experience. And so the subconscious mind takes in information and then forgets that it's there, but it stays there, and it begins to filter through our experience. And because the ego mind is constantly distracted by this duality, this polarity of aversion and grasping, it doesn't seem to notice. And so there's this outpicturing of duality that is pure reaction. It's unconscious. It's so caught up in its own grasping nature that seldom does it realize that it's effect of the subconscious mind, or rarely does it actually realize that it can connect to a higher level of consciousness, to all that is. It is the blueprint of nature, which is our nature. So those that have the ability to work with light, those that have been called the light workers, the star seeds, the intuitives, the sensitives, the empaths, they have the ability to work with light, which is the foundation of creation, the foundation of consciousness itself, pure presence. And these individuals that can see and hear and feel things that many other people cannot are in the process of becoming more and more aligned with this intelligence, this light, which is pure information, and they're recognizing it as their own nature unfolding. As they begin to see the ego consciousness, the fabrication of this reality, this lower vibratory reality that has been impressed onto the light and then forgotten about. So much so that the majority of us have been deluded about our very nature. And if we're deluded about our very nature, then most likely we're deluded about everything else and our relationship to it, because we are disconnected from the foundation of our own consciousness. So this ego consciousness has been a sort of energetic parasite, so to speak. And it has been siphoning our energy, unbeknownst to many, keeping us in the dark, keeping us confused, keeping us separate. And it has been such an effective, this ego, I should say, has been such a perfect self-reproducing, self-perpetuating, self-fulfilling system that has kept people confined and asleep in a comfortable discomfort. Somehow people wondering, like, is this all there is? Is this all there is? Do I just get to go to the store and decide whether I want the blue cheese salad dressing or the ranch? Is this all there is? And our whole existence has been dwindled down based on a system that is a value of opposites. So in this value of opposites, there is always one of the opposites that's given dominance over the other. So embedded in it is a constant devaluing or a lack. And so if you're in this duality, there is a built-in aspect of suffering, fear, lack, and worthlessness. All of these programs are embedded in our subconscious. So because dualities are a whole, you can't have one side of the duality valued as being preferred, or the part that the ego wants to grasp, and then the other part where the other part of the devalued opposite is repressed and pushed away as not being of value. And so there's a price to pay for all of this. Part of us actually believes there's nobody that gets out free from this. There's parts of our subconscious that actually consider ourselves worthless because we cannot all the time connect ourselves with this dominant or most valuable side of these poles of opposites. And then we're not allowed to have wants or needs because part of us believes we're worthless, let alone recognize that we have these needs. And then if we do, we're considered selfish. So it continues, or if we get what we want, other people won't be able to have what they want, which is a false premise in which our entire ego thinking system is based on. So it continues to keep people out of alignment with meaningful or purposeful action. This sets up a system of endless echo of victim-perpetrator, which is a level of insanity that people are living in. So the good news is, folks, that there is a dissolution of the veils happening right now, where we are discovering our truth, our worth, our sovereignty, and we are in the process of having this all restored on all levels of our consciousness. Because the ego can't, because by its very nature, the ego can't know any of this is happening. So it's many may be experiencing it on an unconscious level. So there are those that are witnessing it, and they're seeing the dissonance, they're feeling the dissonance, but they can't quite articulate it. And then there are those that have already awoken or awakening or have awoken, and they are here to hold the vibration of the light, to personal freedom and the liberation that this country was founded on in America: liberty, freedom, and justice for all. And it is not necessarily being demonstrated in our personal lives or across the world right now or in this country. It is the exact opposite for many, as we see that currently there is still 1% of the population that is owning the majority of the wealth. And this is a core value system issue that reaches down to the roots of consciousness itself and the ego structure in which we've been inherited to live inside, which is inherently based on lack. Or the other side is an abundance, and who gets to have this? And it's a constant push-pull, because if I'm going to be the one that has, I have to be the perpetrator. And if you are the one that has not, then you are the victim. And so this is the psychosis at the basis of the Western world. And then we see, or may begin to see, that our participation in the self-imprisoned jail cells of our mind and our ego. And we begin to be able to examine, or at least I'm asking you to begin to examine, if you haven't already, to really look at the origins of this disconnect and begin the process of what it will take to begin to anchor a new awareness in this world that will create a truly abundant expression and the promise of true freedom and true liberation. And so this also requires, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, that we clear the path to this new world, to the freedom that we envision. And this requires strengthening the muscles around our intuitive abilities, our abilities in our bodies to read the language of the universe, which is energy. Our bodies are energetic technology. They we have, I should say, the energetic technology that has been shut off through generations of conditioning. And this is the technology that we need to turn back on and needed to take us on this journey, on this path, on this road. Once we bring our mind, we create a habit, we create a practice of bringing our mind into the vibrational frequency of our heart, because our heart is a portal to all other hearts. It is a telepathic portal to all of creation and all other human beings. This will help accelerate the vibrational alignment and connect us to the quantum gateways of collective evolution that is needed to move us forward. This is the process of soul alchemy, and this happens when everything that is unlike the light is brought into consciousness. And this is where we find these triggers and these sore spots and bring them to the light. Give them the love that they need so that they can be released and healed. So while many people are out in the world in resistance, protesting and fighting and battling this material world, expending and investing their energy in this dualistic framework of the ego, this is not where the real change is going to occur. This is not where the new world will grow from. It is not the architecture of the new world, I should say. The new world is going to be built on energy. So every time we resist, we're simply reinforcing that system or that structure. We're reinforcing what we don't want. So everything that we've been taught, everything that I've been taught, says that we can go out into the world and we can fix and change something that we don't like. But it's a level of change in the same energetic frequency of lack. And it doesn't actually create real or sustainable change. It just creates more of the same. And I'm sure you've witnessed and seen this over and over again. When there is a new presidential candidate being voted in, and the promise is change and freedom, and then the system just reproduces the same because that's where it's functioning from. So in this evolution, in this revolution, it's not going to be fought outside in the external world. Although it may appear that way, it is an internal, personal relationship to the self, to true consciousness, to the nature of our expansive energy, which is truth. And this is already happening. This is already unfolding. But the game of the ego for many is all that they know. So there is a clinging, a contracting, a fear of loss, because the ego wants to continue to exist, even if it's not fulfilling us, if it's causing suffering or separation or alienation of ourselves from source. At least it's the devil that we know. So this is part of the reason, well, the main reason why I created this Mind, Heart, Space podcast, to share with you these ideas. And I started offering integrative awareness coaching on my Mind, Heart, Space website with services based on giving you the skills and techniques that you need in order to make this transition, in order to begin this journey. And it's all based on my own journey and path to liberation. and the clearing of the path and sharing that with others so they have a way to move forward. They see a way to move forward. So as I hold the light for those that can travel these stormy waters and make their own way to this new world so we can all evolve. So, because as you probably know, the forces that created the existing world are not necessarily rooted in love or individual expression or the development of individual potential. In fact, in this world, divinity has been confined to certain churches and temples or certain groups of people who have been considered the chosen ones. But in reality, divinity or spirits, which is life, infuses all of the material world. And this, as quantum physics has shown us, that everything down to a subatomic level is energy. And this energy is this life source, the principle of life. And it's been reduced down to this constant pull of polar opposites, where we have religion on one side and science on the other, when actually they're two sides of the same coin. Spirit imbues all of matter. That's what all the ascended masters came to tell us. Jesus, Buddha, they came to remind us of the path. They came to remind us of our birthright, which is we are light. The path is light, which contains all the truth and the wisdom of creation itself. Light carries information and intelligence. So this is the time for all of us to start, if we haven't already, uncovering our own unique soul signature and vibration. Trust in our own creative power. Honor our intuition and start living into an inspired life. Sharing our light with others and the magic in our heart. Instead of getting caught up in judgment and fear and conformity, worried about what other people are thinking about us. This is the time when all of our ego restrictions can be healed and let go of and seen for what they are, our own self-imposed jail cells. If you're interested in finding out more about how you can use certain techniques and tools to continue or to start your way on this path, grounded in energy into the body, and create a team to work with, because this whole team of yours is already here. This team is all the spectrums of your consciousness working together. Your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, and your superconscious mind are here, and they contain everything that you need. Just as the acorn contains all the information it needs to be a fully expressed tree. So this team can help you plug back into source, discover your divine blueprint, so you can fully live the life that you came here to this earth to live. The sense of gratitude and peace and creativity with like-minded people who can hold a communal space for you, a space that can reflect back to you the truth of who you are. This is a liberating space that allows you to discover and delve into the depths all the way down to your cellular memory, that everything you need is already here and waiting for you. Sometimes we need some companions to help us along the way. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you heard something of value that you can take out into the world with you. And if you'd like to find out more, check out my website, www.mindheart-space.com. You can also visit my Facebook page for regular content. I also have a Creating Your Inner Temple weekly meditation running until next week. And all the weeks of the previous weeks are recorded and on my Facebook page, as well as my Mind Heart YouTube channel. So if you get a minute, stop by, say hi. If you like what you hear, subscribe, share, and like. Until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. And bye for now.